Hola everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Abe, so this is Lingo with Abe, and this is my channel where I sort of take you along my journey to Spanish fluency and sort of teach you my tips and tricks for picking up a language, especially as a busy 19 to 25-year-old college student, early working adult. So yeah, here we go. Okay, so a little bit background on me. I started learning Latin at age 8 and I reached Latin fluency at around age 18. Now, for those of you who don't know, Latin is the root of all Romance languages. So languages like Spanish, Italian, French, Portuguese, Catalan, all kind of very, very similar to Latin because they get their root in Latin. So I have sort of two motivations for doing this channel for you guys. The first, for me myself to become fluent in Spanish because I plan on living in Spanish-speaking countries as soon as I graduate college. So I would like to, gain some Spanish fluency obviously before I go and do that. But also, Spanish is one of the leading languages in America right now. Several people in America speak Spanish, and so it is a very, very helpful language just to know how to speak and at least, have some familiarity with. But another reason is just to teach people to love learning languages as much as I love learning languages and just kind of make it, fun, and it's not as hard as it often seems. So that's kind of my goal. That being said, let's get into it. Okay, so first let's talk about discipline. It takes a lot of discipline to learn a new language. There are times where you're going to feel like you're floundering completely in learning a new language, and that's very normal. There are definitely points in my Latin fluency where I have felt like way overwhelmed, and that's super normal. But you do have to be aware that, especially if you're immersing yourself in a new language, there are going to be times where you feel super overwhelmed, but you just kind of have to keep digging, keep working on that language, because the more you work on it, the better you are going to get. There's no outcome in which you don't get better if you keep trying. So that's my encouragement to you as far as discipline. How are you realistically planning on reaching your language goals in a given week or a given day? What are you going to substitute out of your daily routine for things that will help you more in your target language? So for example, in my day, I might, instead of scrolling on Instagram or TikTok between my classes, I might go on Duolingo and learn a new level. Or instead of listening to English podcasts and music in the gym, I might change it out for some Latin music or some podcasts in Spanish. Just kind of filling your day with activities that you can do in your target language instead of doing in your normal language. And then this leads me into my final point, which is strategy. So there are two primary methods to language learning. They are the immersion method or the direct method and the grammar method or the translation method. I do firmly believe that a complete mastery and fluency in a language is understanding both and kind of utilizing both methods of learning new languages. So I'll explain them really quickly, and then I will have other videos about these methods later on in my channel, but I'll kind of do a brief overview for you right now so you kind of know what we're getting into. The immersion method or the direct method is essentially for people who are completely immersed in the culture and language. Say they move to the country of their target language. So say that I moved to Costa Rica, one of my favorite countries. I'm going to be completely immersed in Spanish there, right? There are people who speak English, of course, but I'm also going to be immersed in the food, in the culture, with the people. That is the immersion method. Now, there are ways to simulate the immersion method if you don't live in a country where the first language is your target language. So for example, I can kind of simulate this immersion by listening to podcasts, listening to music in Spanish, reading books in Spanish, writing in my journal in Spanish, watching movies in Spanish, talking a lot to yourself in Spanish. If you're like me and you talk to yourself a lot, talking to yourself in your target language is one of the most helpful things that you can do. because you'll learn it because you're immersing your brain in it, and your brain's like swimming in all this of Spanish. The next method is the grammar method, or the translation method. This method essentially believes that you cannot gain full mastery of a language if you don't understand sort of the gears behind the way that the language works. This means understanding things like nouns and verbs and adjectives and principal parts, understanding the endings of nouns and verbs and how they change and what they mean, understanding grammatical gender, tenses and moods and voices and all of these things that every language has, understanding how those work, what they are, and how they're used, especially in translation, which is why the grammar method is also called the translation method. Another great tool I have to mention really quickly is finding a mentor to mentor you in your target language. So if you're learning Spanish, find a Spanish speaker who is native to the language, wherever they're from. If they speak Spanish fluently, you want them to teach you, want them to help you learn, because they're going to be able to teach you things that you won't be able to learn by yourself. For example, an accent. So find someone in your life who can teach you those things. Okay guys, that's all I have time for in this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. I'll see you in my next episode. Adios.